The Titanic never sunk, and the actual truth will shock you. Buckle up, and let's debunk this crazy conspiracy theory that has been surfacing the internet again. Let's be real. Few events have gripped the public imagination like the sinking of the Titanic. The story of Titanic has inspired countless books, films, and TV shows over the years. Yet despite the wealth of information available about the disaster, there are still those who believe that the Titanic never actually existed. Yes, believe it or not, there is a conspiracy theory that suggests that the sinking of the Titanic never actually existed, that it was all just an elaborate hoax, perpetrated by nefarious forces with their own sinister agenda. This is a theory that has gained traction in certain online circles over the past few years. So, what's the truth behind this Titanic conspiracy theory? Is there any evidence to support the idea that the most famous shipwreck in history was nothing more than a figment of our collective imagination? I must admit, it's pretty convincing, and I can't wait to share with you what I've learned. Before we move any further, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Let's dive in and explore this fascinating topic in more detail. While it might seem like an amusing idea to entertain for a few minutes, the truth is that the claim is not only false, but it's also dangerous. It's a prime example of the kind of misinformation that has the potential to do real harm in our world, and it's time to set the record straight. What is the Titanic conspiracy theory, and where did this theory come from? The Titanic, one of the most iconic ships of all time, has captured the imaginations of millions since its fateful sinking in April of 1912. The problem is that the believers of this theory are basing their claims on a series of falsehoods and misconceptions that have been perpetuated over the years. Let's dive in. Theory 1. The Olympic Ship Switch Theory. There was a sister ship of the Titanic called the Olympic. The Olympic was involved in a collision with another vessel several months before the Titanic sank. According to the theory, the Olympic was badly damaged in the accident and was secretly switched with the Titanic. Others suggest that the sinking of the Titanic was staged in order to create a pretext for the creation of the Federal Reserve, which was established the following year. Theory 2. There's a theory that suggests millionaire banker J.P. Morgan had plotted the sinking of the Titanic in order to eliminate his rivals, fellow millionaires Jacob Astor, Isidor Straus, and Benjamin Guggenheim, who unfortunately died during the disaster. The theory suggests that Morgan intended to be on the Titanic, but changed his plans before it sailed. However, it doesn't explain how he could have caused the ship to hit an iceberg and result in the deaths of over 1,500 people, including the 3 men he supposedly wanted to die. To top it off, the theory claims Morgan wanted to kill them because they opposed the creation of the Federal Reserve. Even though Astor and Guggenheim don't appear to have taken a position on it, Straus actually supported it. Theory 3. Insurance fraud. Another idea is that the crippled Olympic was switched with the Titanic, which was then deliberately sunk for insurance purposes. The theory that the Titanic sinking was a result of insurance fraud is popular because people enjoy a good fraud story. According to the theory, someone substituted the ERMS Olympic for the Titanic. However, Paul Burns, the vice president and curator of the Titanic Museum attractions in Missouri and Tennessee, finds this theory illogical. This theory is based on the fact that the Olympic ship was damaged during its voyage from Southampton, England, to New York in September 1911. As a result, it had to return to Harland and Wolff Shipping Yard in Belfast for repairs. After the repairs, the Olympic resumed its voyage to New York and returned back. However, it had to be sent back to Belfast for further repairs in March 1912, which was just a few weeks prior to the Titanic's departure. Theory 4. The Titanic is cursed. William Stead, a British editor and believer in spiritualism, was a passenger on the Titanic and had previously claimed that a cursed mummy was responsible for causing destruction and disaster in London. This myth, like other myths about Egyptian curses and Native American burial grounds, tapped into the anxiety of colonialists about the people whose land they had exploited. When he was on the Titanic, Stead joyfully told other passengers about the mummy's curse. After the ship sunk, one of the survivors shared Stead's story with the New York World, and then the press began reporting on it. The following month, the Washington Post published an article titled, "Ghost of the Titanic, Vengeance of Hoodoo Mummy Followed Man Who Wrote Its History," based on Stead's account. Burns stated that some people linked the mummy's curse to Egyptian artifacts that Margaret Brown, a Titanic survivor, had with her for transportation to a Denver museum. However, Snopes offers a different explanation. The mummy was supposed to board the Titanic because an American had bought it from the British Museum and was shipping it to the United States. However, the unlucky mummy is still in the British Museum and was never placed on the ship. Despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, there are those who continue to question whether the Titanic ever existed at all. For those who have studied the artifacts recovered from the wreckage, there can be no doubt the Titanic was very real, and her sinking was a devastating event that changed the course of history. Each artifact offers a glimpse into the past, shedding light on the lives of those who lived and died aboard the fateful vessel. From delicate stoneware dishes to weathered leather suitcases, every item tells a story. Yet there is one artifact that stands out above the rest: the ship's line throwing gun. It's a piece of equipment that very few people knew existed before the Titanic's sinking. And yet, here it is, pulled from the depths of the ocean along with hundreds of other artifacts salvaged from the wreck site. The newspaper headlines that trumpeted the vessel's launch to the gripping accounts of the survivors' harrowing experiences. There is no shortage of material out there to fuel the imagination. A great ship, they say, that sailed across the ocean in the early 20th century, only to be sunk by an iceberg, taking with it hundreds of passengers and crew. But for others, this story is not just unbelievable, it's downright impossible. What motivates these people to spread such an outlandish claim? Some claim that it's simply for attention and to gain followers on social media platforms. Others argue that it's a way to challenge authority and disrupt the existing power structures. But after hours of diligent research and interviews, it's clear that this conspiracy theory is nothing but a wild, unfounded claim. The evidence for Titanic's existence is overwhelming, from the countless records of its construction to the harrowing first-hand accounts of survivors. It's one thing to question the details of the ship's sinking or the actions of certain individuals involved, but to deny its very existence is a slap in the face to the thousands who perished on that fateful night. Perhaps the most puzzling aspect of this conspiracy theory is the motive behind it. If Titanic never existed, what purpose would it serve to create such a marvelous illusion? The theory falls apart upon closer inspection, and its proponents are left with nothing but baseless conjecture. So let us put this outlandish conspiracy to rest and honor the memory of those who lost their lives on the Titanic by acknowledging the reality of that tragic event.